As we await the conclusion of the World Series, we're going to take a look into the near future as we ask our friend Cardinals assistant general manager and head of player performance your fan questions as we begin our journey towards the 2026 season.
Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy.
Breeze hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
This is the Viva Alberto's podcast on SB Nation.
Welcome into another episode of the Viva Alberto's podcast. As always, I am your host, Jake Wood, and normally I am joined by the VEB writing staff. However, tonight I am going one-on-one with the great and wise Rob Cerfolio. Rob, how you doing tonight, man? And thanks for hopping on. Happy off season to you.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. The great and wise. I'll send you a tip for that descriptor on the back end.
Thank you.
I appreciate the flattering compliments, whether they're true or not. But look forward to chatting with you today.
You know, earlier this week, I put out to our reader base that you were going to be on the show and you were excited to answer fan questions, and perhaps I'll sprinkle in a couple of my own plus some follow-ups that might be relevant. So without further ado, here we go. Rob from the Hoff STL is his username. His question is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, the Instagram debate that I've seen. I would say yes, because it's a piece of meat or substance between two slices of bread or
Okay.
bread that appears to be two slices.
See,
So
that
I'll go on the record as yes. I believe a hot dog is a
That was
version
my answer as well. Is like, so whenever I first got into this debate, it was always like the question you have to answer first before answering this question is like, how do you define a sandwich, right? And you defined it perfectly. It's a piece of meat or substance between two slices of bread, which a hot dog technically. So I would be in line with you. A hot dog is technically a sandwich. And the more important follow-up is how much will those sandwiches cost at a Cardinals game coming into next season? Because we heard about from Mr. DeWitt that they will be looking into potentially some price-cutting options for families. So what can you say on that end?
That's a decision that rests in a little bit higher cotton than myself. So thankfully, I just help us figure out how we're going to try and help coach players and what we're going to work on. And I'll leave the important, hard-hitting questions like how much does a hot dog cost at a Cardinals game to people other than myself.
Now, I think you would probably gather some fan favor if you were out, say, in Ford Plaza just handing out some free hot dogs. Like that would probably go a long way to buying you some credibility here. But
I'll consider that for next year.
You just never know what might get a fan on your side. You just don't know. So our next question comes to us from Cardinal 511. What is Rob's favorite development success that he can tell us about? So whether that be with the Cardinals or with your time with the Guardians, who's a player that, given your influence or direction, that you think was your favorite or your favorite player success story to come out of that?
Oh man. There's a lot of them. I think a player that jumps to my mind. Well, I guess first off, I would say I think what I'm actually more proud of is the number of staff that I've been able to work with and learn from, who have, and hopefully some of that was a two-way street, although albeit I probably learned more working next to people than they learned from me. But just the number of major league staff members that I've been able to work with, hire, that have gone on to do incredible things across the industry in the big leagues, or in leadership positions in front offices across baseball. I'm really proud of that. I think it's a really hard and fun challenge to develop people, both by way of skills and experiences. So that actually would probably be one of the things I'm most proud of. If I had to pick a player, a lot of them jump to mind. I'm going to go a little bit off script with a player named Daniel Schneemann, who's
Awesome.
utility player for the Guardians who was a millionth round draft pick like myself. And normally those types of players don't last very long. And this is a guy that just responded to every challenge and took feedback and coaching opportunities to heart and worked his you know what off to even get to the big leagues and then have a little bit of success is pretty cool. He's a great teammate, father, husband that he's grown into over time, and it's pretty awesome to see him having success at the big league level.
Daniel Schneeman is a great shout. I love that. Our next question comes to us from user CR Threlkeld. Don't ask me about some of these names, Rob. I don't know. Don't.
I like it. Creative.
He said, I thought I heard somewhere that the long discussed / anticipated pitching lab was being built at the facility in Jupiter, Florida. Rob, what goes into a pitching lab that you can kind of divulge that's kind of, uniform across the league? He said, I heard the discussion. We talked to 7th round pick Peyton Graham last week on our episode about the work he was already doing there with his fastball shape. What does the addition of a pitching lab bring to the aspect of pitching development?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot there, so I'll do my best to be succinct yet specific. So a pitching lab, I think traditionally means what someone would see if they pulled up a set of live BPs or a training session at a drive line or a tread, or one of those indoor facilities where it's a single tunnel with a mound and a catcher and a whole bunch of motion capture cameras and high speed edgertronic video to be able to really just visualize and capture everything that's happening with that pitcher. So the cool thing is with some of this new Hawkeye technology that is becoming more and more prevalent at fields in the minor leagues and obviously all the way up to the big leagues is in a lot of ways a major league or minor league field is a lab because you can capture how the body is moving in space and how it's moving under the conditions of competition, which is obviously really important. That's always what our players are under in the biggest moments. So you can use all that information and then you can build a lab per se away from a field of competition that has similar capacity to track how the pitcher's body is moving through space and how that's impacting the ball from a velocity, spin, trajectory standpoint out of hand, to be able to really just objectively quantify everything that's happening, whether that's force through force plates into the ground, whether that's kinematic sequences through the actual motion capture, whether that's edgertronic video, which is like super detailed high-speed cameras to see how exactly the ball is spinning and coming out of the individual's hand, to some of the devices like Rapsodo, Yakertech, TrackMan Portable to actually measure how the ball is moving in space from a movement profile standpoint. So, long way of saying there's a lot of information you can capture, but I think those are some of the core pieces of technology that you would see in like a traditional lab or what you would see and be able to do from the more on-field lab.
Yeah, so we saw this past July that you guys kind of shifted a little bit in philosophy in terms of like the types of pitchers you guys targeted in the draft this year. Is that like a result of kind of an evolution in thinking in terms of like, so when you're talking about the pitching lab, you're thinking, and we're talking about like guys like Liam Doyle, a Tanner Franklin, aforementioned Peyton Graham, these guys who can really run in some high octane stuff. Is there a belief that if we start with a baseline of just like a really hard, good shaped fastball, and then we can kind of develop other things off of that? Is that kind of the line of thinking in that direction, or how did that certainly come about?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the answer to how did this come about, it's just it's a great collaborative experience between talking about the draft, particularly here with Randy Flores and his team. And then a couple of us new guys coming in here, whether it's myself or Matt Pierpont or Austin Miney or, really just it's a good synergy between who have the Cardinals been and what did some of us new guys bring to the table from different successful organizations on the pitching side? And, we took a lot of time actually trying to like work through and define what that is and what that means for the future. And it was really fun this past July to be able to bring some of that to life. And just the synergy between the scouting group and the player development staff I think was really fun to be a part of. And I don't know that there's like one trait that you look for with a pitcher. You're really just trying to assess the pitcher holistically, and who is he as an arm, who is he as an athlete, who is he as a person, and what does this guy do really well? And if you have a clear framework for what tends to lead to success at the major league level on the pitching side. And now let's work backwards from that and really try and bring in talented players that have a desire and a work ethic to get better, but bring traits to the table that we can mold and improve and add additional quality around that. So that was kind of really the framework that we tried to define and put in place over this last year. And I know we've obviously got a lot more exciting work ahead of us, but we're excited about some of the progress we were able to make in year one of really bringing those smart people together, asking those questions of who do we want to be, what do we want to solve for, what do we think leads to the most likely success in the future, and now let's work backwards from that and find things and traits that we think we can build around and move the needle on.
Sure, and I think we were able to see the result of some of those enhancements or changes. Now, guys already had a good baseline of talent as it stood, but you look at a guy like a Pete Hansen, or whenever last time you were on, you referenced a Bryson Mouts, or you talk about like an Eshawn Henderson, those three lefties that were there on the Double-A championship team, or Quinn Matthews, even though he had some struggles at Triple-A with some command issues, but it seemed like he was starting to find his footing there at the end of the season as he was healthy. Actually, you go further down the list and down the league, and you start looking at more and more guys who did take certain steps forward in their progression and their development. I think it was obvious and clear to see that guys were taking to this new or this enhanced direction or coaching and further enabled coaching that was a result of the new implementations that you guys put in. So
Yeah, we appreciate that. We got a lot of talented players, and lucky to be able to have recruited some talented people to join the talent that we already had to just help us get back to the results that we want across the entire org. So it's been really fun that way.
would it be pretty safe to assume that those lefties would probably start the season more than likely at AAA and will more than likely see spend so? This is my question, and I find it really fascinating. I understand they stayed at Double-A for the experience and getting the chance to compete for a championship and all of that. But why is it? Maybe you can answer this better than I've gotten an answer before. Why is it that AAA and above use a different baseball than Double-A and below? And just the having to adjust, like we saw with Quinn Matthews, having to adjust to that big league ball. Why is there not a uniform baseball used across all levels and it's only AAA and above?
Yeah, that's a that's a good question for Mr. Manfred and MLB. I think some of the info that I've heard on this is it's actually just quite literally hard and expensive to procure the number of baseballs that you would need to be able to bring that all the way down to rookie ball. But it certainly is a constraint that we don't have much say so. It's just kind of the conditions that are in front of us. So no excuses, and it creates an opportunity for us to strategize and try and use that as a competitive advantage to make sure that we're getting guys practice reps with that Major League Baseball ahead of getting to AAA. There definitely is an adjustment period, and it affects guys with certain profiles more so than it does others. But that's an expected effect that we're aware of, and with the right planning and just intelligent execution, we can find a way to prepare our players. And I do think it creates an awesome learning opportunity for those guys to face some adversity, because guess what? They're going to face adversity when they go up to the major leagues as well. And learning how to compartmentalize and still push yourself to improve in the minor leagues, I think is really important for guys to feel and experience before they get up top. So, long way of saying, I think there's some constraints when it comes to just, Major League Baseball's ability to even execute that as a feasible strategy or option. And then on our side, it's like, how do we be really smart about getting ahead of that and planning so that we're putting our guys in as good of a position as we possibly can.
Certainly. I want to apologize. I didn't mean to frame it as if, why is Rob why did
No,
you
you're
make it the
not at all.
baseball
You're
that way?
good. You're
But
good.
I didn't know if perhaps you had been given an explanation because perhaps you were curious yourself as to why that was the case.
I definitely am, and that's the info that I have. Here in October of 25 is
Which
just the
is
the actual,
a
the
very
mass production.
a very curious thing that $1 trillion industry like Major League Baseball would find it hard to facilitate making a uniform baseball across all levels. Interesting,
I
interesting.
don't disagree, and I'll leave that.
Okay,
That
I don't
answer
want to
to
get you in any
people's smart
yeah,
debate.
I don't want to get you in any trouble, so I'm not going to press any further than that. We're going to move on. So we talked about the pitching side. Let's talk about some of the hitters. Can you give us some insight into what Josh Baez did to improve his hitting profile this year? Was it a change in organizational philosophy? Was it a specific coach? Was it something he worked on himself? Did he go to a place like Driveline, or was it just more physical maturation? And then I'll let you kind of chew on that for a little bit, and then I will ask you about a kind of a parallel of a player who's playing in the AFL right now.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think first off, JB had a tremendous season, and he deserves a ton of credit for just the work ethic and quality that he brings to the yard every day. It's pretty impressive. This is a young kid that the physical tools in conjunction with his desire to be great is, we're lucky to have guys like that in our system. So, this is another a cool example of collaboration and individualized player plans at its finest. And it starts with, what makes this player great? What are the parts of his game that can never change that he will need to be pillars for his success at the highest level? And where are there opportunities for growth around that? And by running like a great assessment process, both of who this guy is as a hitter in the box to how does he move from a strength and conditioning and medical standpoint, and then using our technology in game to when this guy is impacting the baseball at his best. How is he moving through space, and how is that different than how he's moving when things aren't going as well? And just by using all that information and having a room of experts, we were able to isolate some parts of his swing from a posture standpoint, and how his posture impacts the way in which the bat moves through the strike zone, and really just create a training protocol to bring that best version of him to life more consistently. And the player deserves a lot of credit. The staff at the affiliate and at the leadership levels deserve a lot of credit. It's really a collaborative team effort in that way to be able to leverage all the information that we have and put a crystal clear plan together to help move the needle on an opportunity for Josh to take the next step. So that was kind of what that process looked like. And it was really fun to watch it unfold throughout the course of the year. And even despite being challenged at a higher level, Josh was able to really maintain that and committed himself to those difficult training environments each and every day. And we're excited to see how we can build on that in 2026 and beyond.
Such a useful and thoughtful answer from and a question from a guy named Schmidthead. So that's fun. His follow-up question is, he also wonders if the Cardinals are following the same template with a player like Miguel Higuaín, who is, like Baez, had a power profile in his estimation, but really hasn't shown much power yet. But now it looks like he's gotten better at making contact. Are you able to draw any parallels in what Mr. Higuaín is doing to what Mr. Baez was able to accomplish this year?
Yeah, I mean, really, really similar process, right? Of trying to, in Oogie's case, it's just, now fill in a different name and you're asking yourself the same questions. And what are the things that he does great that need to be staples of his game, and where's our opportunity around that? And I think, the other thing here is that he missed time during the season. And so the AFL presents a great opportunity for guys to get more at bats and development opportunities on defense. So, that was a lot of the line of thinking there with more baseball for Oogie. And yeah, I think from the parallels to Baez, like they're different and similar in some ways. But the steps that we're taking to figure out what we should do with Oogie and why is the exact same. It's an evidence-based assessment and programming process that hopefully translates into results over the next several years.
And you guys chose to send guys like Chin-Wei Lin and Travis Honeyman and Miguel Higuaín, and there has been a long sense understanding or thought amongst at least the fans that the AFL was to be used as more of a finishing school than anything. It appears that you guys are using it as a way to kind of catch up on reps, guys who missed time this year. How does the organization view the AFL and just its opportunity? What's the driving factor behind the guys that you choose to send there?
Yeah, great question. I think it's probably yes and to those things you referenced. And it really depends on the player. Some guys you could treat it, I think maybe the 10-year ago version of the AFL was a little bit more of a quote finisher league. And I think the environment's a little bit different today than it was then. Not in a good or bad way, just the types of players that tend to be a little bit younger, tend to be a little bit more prospect oriented than maybe it did in 2015, 2016. So really it just comes down to what's best for the player. And some guys miss time during the course of the year, and it's a great way for them to actually just make up developmental opportunities. Some guys, it is more through a strict developmental lens of we'd like to challenge this player with XYZ in context of a game environment. And then you're just trying to assess the trade-offs of, well, what's actually the long-term goal for this player and what's our best bet to actually get him to that version of himself. And oftentimes the off season is one of the most productive ways to move the needle on the physical side. So when you're talking about nutrition, strength and conditioning, health on the medical side, and just performance improvement, you really have to make the trade-off is playing more games. We're trying to develop this guy from an athleticism, strength, power, movement efficiency, the right way that you want to go. And that's why you need to have a really smart team and a collection of experts to just weigh all those decisions at the end of the year. And then the player's voice is a huge part of that, is what do they actually want out of their offseason, and how can the player and the staff kind of work in unison to pull that off. So those are a lot of the things that we think of. There's no black or white. This is what the opportunity is or isn't. I think you really have to think individually about each player's circumstance and what we stand to gain and what we stand to lose if we decide to play more baseball during this time of year.
Now, like the AFL, does the industry also view winter ball in a similar light to the AFL for different types of guys? It's just more opportunities, more reps in the off season to kind of work on different things before the season starts, before spring training rolls around. We're seeing more. I feel like we're hearing more and more about certain guys going to play winter ball that maybe wouldn't have in the past. in the same light that the AFL has been looked at as, going to get more out of more baseball, more reps, more this, more that. Is winter ball kind of being looked at in that same light now? Guys either international or American based going abroad. So like we saw Koperniak, that's it. He went and played in winter ball for Albert Pujols. So and that same that's kind of where the basis of my question resonates is winter ball being just looked at as just another opportunity for guys to go and get more polish, more opportunities, more reps in the off season and kind of look at them kind of continuing their development that way as well.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the same. Logic wise, it's maybe the answer to that could be yes, the answer to that could be no. It just depends on the player. I think a lot of international players have a chance to play in their home country, which is an incredible amount of pride and just a great opportunity for them to represent the teams that are their home. So that there's that element of it for international players. And then similar to the AFL, it is an opportunity for players globally to get more opportunities in game if that's the thing that we need to move the needle on the most. So again, I think it just really comes down to what's best for every player in terms of how do we get them closer to the best version of them. And now you're just weighing the opportunity costs and upside of playing more baseball games at opposed to doing something else. So it's really just an individual case by case basis, but I do think you're hitting on the main components or drivers that help inform the decision.
So we talked a lot about a couple different outfielders who are maybe another year or two away. Well, let's get into the outfielder that everyone seemingly wants to talk about, and it's Jordan Walker. This comes to us from our friend JDog55. I won't ask you the first question because I don't think this question ultimately comes down to your decision. You'll probably be involved in the decision making, but his first question is, will he start in AAA next season regardless of spring training performance? I don't know if that ultimately falls at your shoes to make that decision, but I'm sure you're involved in that decision making. The second question is, was he given off-season hitting assignments to work on? I'll answer that for you. Yes, every player is given something to work on in the offseason, but I will go a step further and ask, for those who exist on the internet and try to pick apart a player's swing and tell you exactly what's wrong, let's just hear from the guy who is making or helping establish and make those player plans. What is it about Jordan Walker that he continues to struggle with? I know that Heim has talked on the record publicly about, Jordan being asked every single season to make some sort of in-season adjustment and feeling that it will be best for him to have this offseason to make those adjustments so that he has more of a prepared plan going into next season. And then the third question, I'll allow you can elaborate on if you choose to or not to, but he asks, is it hogwash that he's been resistant to instruction to this point? So we also heard Brant Brown, who went on the Gas House Gang KMOX. I'm sure you're familiar with his going on. And he said that Jordan had been resistant to certain types of instruction or change in his approach, or may be falling short on some of his preparation in terms of being prepared for relievers later in games. So I'll just start with kind of what are you seeing from Jordan Walker and kind of what is like the layman's terms of kind of what you guys want him to work on going into this offseason.
Yeah, there's there's a lot of layers to that, to those series of questions. First off, I would say as a guy that's only been here for a year, I've really enjoyed getting to know Jaywalk and just be involved a little bit in terms of where we're trying to go. And I think to Heim's quotes that he made publicly of sometimes I think young players get public prospect fatigue because they've been a name for so long. and this incredible external pressure is placed upon them. Like, that's a real thing. And it's another real thing that we all need to get better. So that's where my mind is really focused here. Just as part of the several questions that made up that question there of since I've gotten to know Jaywalk, he's been really invested in trying to become the best player that he knows he can be. And that's where our mentality is right now. And I think we're all on the same page of how we think we can get there. And that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work immediately. There might like development is not always a straight line up. There's there's ebbs and flows that go with that. But again, this is a young player that does some things that very few people in baseball can do. And now it's on all of us to how do we take a scientific, evidence-based approach to getting him towards a more consistent best version of him. And Jaywalk already, I think this fall has shown a desire to partner with us on that by way of where he's training and the types of things he's training towards. And just his global commitment to that, I think, is awesome. So there are some things in his swing with his posture and the way in which his barrel turns behind him to create optimal planes to be able to leverage the thing that he does best, which is really impact the baseball. And now, how do we get those things to happen consistently at the right angles against different pitch types in different parts of the zone is a lot easier said than done. But we know we have work to do, and the group is working towards it. So that's what's exciting about the opportunity we have ahead of us, and I'm fired up to play a small part in that process as we continue to unfold in the off season and then in season next year.
Yeah, for sure. I think so I came on our show here a couple months ago and said I think I'm ready to be done with the Jordan Walker experience. Now that's the frustrated fan in me who was expressing some frustration. Obviously, Jordan Walker's still 23 years old. He and JJ Weatherhold are essentially the same age, and JJ hasn't even made it his major league debut yet. And like, you look at, say, Baseball Savant, you guys have more internal data that's a lot better than Baseball Savant, or I would assume you do. And, you look at like his max exit velocity and like his hard hit rate and things of that nature. And it's like, holy cow, like that's the part that really pops off the page is this guy's, like you referenced, consistently impacting the baseball. It's, 110 plus consistently off the bat. And like max EV is like 115 or something. So like this dude who has like an unreal frame, like you almost never see guys this big playing baseball, able to do something special to the baseball that not many people are even physically capable of. And yep. I do agree that the Cardinals, at least where they are right now in the competitive cycle, it doesn't necessarily make the most sense to move on from that type of potential talent because, you look at the upside and it being able to pop could so vastly change the near term of what the Cardinals could be. Right.
Yep.
So yeah. I totally understand it from the Cardinals' perspective. I think that it falls in line with a lot with what you say is, fans are just fatigued with this growth process. And like you referenced also, it's not a linear process. Guys go through the ups and downs. It's just, I think that for some of the older fans, they're not used to seeing it happen at the major league level as much. Sure, you would have guys come up and struggle a little bit, but then they would take off. But we're actually seeing actively guys developing at the major league level more so than we probably ever have in the history of the game. So,
yeah, and I say that not to say that people shouldn't feel frustrated. I think those are totally fair emotions to feel, and I think everybody who's behind the scenes will feel the same thing at times. Like that's just human nature, and I think how that then translates into just on our side of it is like the thought of we are never going to quit and give up and we're going to turn over every stone. So what's next? And I think to me, that's just the mentality here that all of us feel right now. And That's really why we're trying to get our hands dirty with the right work to help influence the path and just the direction that it allows Jaywalk to be the best player he can be. And I think, that's a thought that I want all of our staff to have is there's always a winning outcome here. We just have to find it.
Sure. Let's move on to we're gonna go back to talking about you, Rob. Our friend Country Stuff says, I can think of so many questions, but I'm sure none of them he would actually be able to answer in specifics. So maybe, how did his Cardinals tenure come to be? Have you known Chaim Bloom for a while, or was it just some kind of cold call? And did you have any other connections to the Cardinals previously before joining the organization?
Good question. I did not have any connections to the Cardinals before this. It's kind of a strange world on the front office baseball side of this is other teams can call and ask, permission to interview you for a fill in the blank job. And other than that, like you're kind of working at the place that you're working with, and you're kind of moving from contract to contract. And at any point in that period, another team could call the team that you work with and say, hey, we want to interview this person for X position. And then it's ultimately on the team that you work for to decide whether or not they will allow you to do it. And it's a unique process, and it's a very short window in time that if the org says yes and the person opts in, that you have to actually vet out the opportunity. So it's a unique set of circumstances in our world that way. To answer the first part of the question, yes, I did know Chaim before interviewing here. I actually had interviewed with him for a job in Boston a couple of years ago that just wasn't the right fit for me at that point in my career, and where I was with my wife and my young family at the time, and just the job and the opportunity I had with the Guardians, it wasn't the right time or fit for me then. And luckily enough, I was able to get another interview with him again, and this time it was the right opportunity and fit for us. So it's very interesting that way. I've had a couple teams reach out over the years, and you just have to try and assess the organization and the vision and the opportunity, and you kind of roll from one decision to the next that way.
Did any teams reach out to you this offseason?
Those are questions that I'll probably punt on answering.
Okay. And so I get my other follow-up would be, we generally hear about, guys jumping from org to org. Generally, like the rule of thumb is that if it's a step up or a promotion, that teams generally won't stand in the way of guys moving up. But if it's a lateral move or perhaps a step back, that they'll generally decline that offer. Is that about the case of how it works, or would you say there's a little more nuance to it than that?
I'd say that's directionally correct. There's oftentimes like certain one-off circumstances that can make that different, but generally that's correct.
And then the other question I have on this topic is from JDog55, and he wants to see if you'll get this reference. Did Chaim initially insist that your title be assistant to the general manager, not assistant general manager?
As an Office fan, I can appreciate the humor and the Dwight Schrute Michael Scott connection there.
That's it.
I can say here, no, that was not the case. But I do very much appreciate the Office reference there, as that's one of my favorite sitcoms.
That's terrific. You just won so many fans right there. Our final question, or at least our final topic starter from our fans, District of Cardinals. What has been the most surprising, quote unquote, gap that you have found within the development system over the last year from whenever you took over in your current role with the Cardinals, and kind of where you guys are now, in your time with the Guardians and coming over to the Cardinals, and kind of how you were able to kind of work in that environment with the Guardians and kind of how they were doing things is like the best perspective you can offer, of course. What is the biggest gap that you have experienced that hopefully is being rectified now going forward? I think I have an idea of what you're going to say, but I'll tell you at the end whether or not you hit it or not.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, coach me up on it. I don't really think of the word gap. To me, it's more of like the word opportunity. And I say that because, like, yeah, there are things that I believe in that we helped build in Cleveland, and we've brought some of that here to how we're trying to conduct business. As a Cardinal. But also I think one of the reason I use the word opportunity is like there's no copy and pasting. Like the conditions of every organization is different. And so to me, it's an opportunity because there's a lot of things that were working well here. So like really trying to clearly understand and be able to articulate what those things are and why those things are the case. And then try and recruit a bunch of other smart people that are smarter than myself to help answer the question of, well, how'd you solve that problem here? And here's how I tried to solve that problem where I was, but you guys had success from fill in the blank other organization. How'd you try and solve that problem? And so just by really trying to create an accurate assessment of what's working well, where is there opportunity for growth, and then what can we do from a people and process standpoint to fill those gaps. And so I think by way of being really intentional with the types of people that we've recruited to add to our team. And when I say people, it's not just what skills and technical expertise do they bring. It's how well can they teach it, and more importantly, what type of teammate and human are they? And having a really high bar and a sound process to be able to find the right people that want to help us build this thing out the right way from the ground up has been really fun. And I've gotten a lot better by just exposing myself to different ideas, whether it was things the Cardinals were doing or things that the Dodgers, Mariners, Orioles, Padres, like all these other organizations that we were able to bring in great people from and kind of build out that new path forward for the St. Louis Cardinals. So to me, I use the word opportunity because there's the literal opportunity to build out a team and recruit great people. And then there's the opportunity to add different processes that help us use all the information to our advantage, like we've talked about a couple of times today, to make informed decisions with what we're going to do with a player and why, and how we're going to partner with that player on exactly how we're going to accomplish that mission. And just by creating buy-in that way and eliminating guesswork, and really using all the information and thinking about a player's development holistically, not just who they are between the white lines, but what they do in the training room, how they go about their work in the weight room. All those things are connected. And just trying to bring that to life this year with a ton of existing Cardinals teammates that are really talented, and adding some other talented people on top of that from different organizations has been really fun. And like Chaim said in his press conference, we're not where we want to be yet, and that's okay. It's really all about how are we moving the needle towards those things, and that those objectives that we have for us in the future. So we know we have work to do, but it's been fun to kind of get the train moving in the right direction and have some really great people on board.
For sure. And you touched on what I thought the number one thing was in terms of like quote unquote gap. You used opportunity. I think it's infrastructure. I think it was like your first, responsibility whenever we first connected back in October of last year. It's, you were in the middle of the process of bringing in more coaches, more people to help just kind of teach the game. And, you called it a people business, and it's really important to have more. So whenever friend of the show, Katie Wu, you've been on her show as well and talked to her. She's terrific. Katie had the report that the Cardinals were very far behind in terms of like their infrastructure and, the amount of coaches they had, that were rotating and traveling and were
kind of supporting system.
specific and traveled and supporting staff, and how like Milwaukee, for example, had like 15 or 16 different guys, and the Cardinals had literally half that number at like 7 whenever you first took over in her report. And so just that amount of extra eyes and ears and attention, and the guys that were able to give more, specified instruction, like I feel like that was where a large gap was in terms of like the player performance and the development aspect was. And I think you have done a terrific job, obviously, after the first year of results of addressing that. And you talk about it being a collaborative effort. You are just one small piece in this overall cog that continues to turn and churn out players. And for my money, I'm very excited about where the Cardinals are headed. I think that smart people like yourself, like Chaim, who are involved in the front office, and not to reference like Flo and Moises, the guys you work with on a daily basis, the assistant general manager level as well, like really smart guys who are trying to take every opportunity to find every like marginal advantage you can to get the Cardinals back to where they need to be. From that standpoint, Cardinals fans are really fired up about. I think that you guys are like what Cardinals fans are most excited about, and hopefully we have expectations that you guys will help deliver us back to the place where we expect to be on a yearly basis.
Well, yeah, we don't take that opportunity lightly, and I'm really excited at just the opportunity for us to earn that trust and respect, and bring some excitement to what this organization is committed to doing. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to be a part of that. I don't take that lightly. I mean that, and we are working tirelessly to help bring that to life. And I think it's an exciting off season of even more hiring and opportunity to continue to build on what we started last year, really across all levels of the front office, and all of the coaching ranks from the top down. So that's a really exciting commitment that the ownership has given us the opportunity to try and see through. And we're going to do everything we can to earn that trust and deliver on what we hope to.
Rob, I want to thank you so much for your time. You have been more than generous with it. You didn't give me a hard out today, so we're able to go a little bit further than normal. But I do genuinely appreciate your time and your commitment to always say yes. And if I can speak for the fans, just how vocal and out front you've been, and kind of being the mouthpiece before Chaim was able to kind of step out from a very respectful place where he wasn't overshadowing Mo. You've been out on the front lines for over a year now, taking the opportunity to talk to people and tell people and kind of explain, where the direction is of the franchise is headed. And just so very appreciative of you, your time, and your friendship behind the scenes. I appreciate everything you've done for me, and thank you for continuing to make me smarter as a baseball fan.
Well, that is a two-way street, and like I said, I'm really grateful to have this opportunity, and think it's really important to bring some of these things and partner with the fan base on it. Those are that the fan base is the reason, a lot of the reason why we do what we do every day, and just to have the opportunity to bring light or pull the curtain back, whatever metaphor you want to use, into some of the things that are going on, and what we hope to accomplish, all in mission of earning that trust, and really showcasing that through a bunch of hard work, and hopefully some smiles and laughter along the way. So appreciate what you guys do to cover everything and bring that to life for the fan base, and I'm glad to play a small role in it.
Well, and we do appreciate all the hard work that you do, and we'll let you get back to that hard work. I know it's Friday, so you're probably going to go enjoy some family time, but soon enough, I'm certain we'll get some personnel announcements on kind of the next evolution of where the Cardinals are headed. So we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to the end of the World Series, that we all kind of probably have an idea of what direction that's going to go, though I never want to say that baseball is predetermined or fixed in any way possible. But from that standpoint, we look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully we can catch up with you again in the spring, Rob, after all of the craziness and all of the change has kind of occurred. And once the dust settles, we'll talk about it and kind of reassess a few months down the road where everything is. And look forward to having you on again, my friend.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Rob. For Rob Cerfolio, I am Jake Wood. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you guys again next week. Have a great night, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Viva Albertos podcast. Please leave a rate and review on your favorite platform and turn on those bell notifications so you can be notified the moment our newest episode is released. As always, make sure to give us a follow on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. Just type in Viva Albertos on any platform to find us. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.